Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Oscars Were Wrong, a new podcast here from us, from the creators of Oscar Buzz.
From the creators.
But I'm Trevor here, as always, with Thomas on this channel, and this is going to be an off-season podcast. We might continue it on if we enjoy it and others enjoy it, but it'll be something fun to keep us entertained and keep talking about the Oscars during the off season of the Academy
We
Awards.
can't go long without talking about the Oscars, can we?
No, we can't. It's a problem. Like even just like messaging each other, like it always comes back to it.
It does. It always circles back.
But yeah, so this, as you've probably seen by the title and thumbnail, we are going to be talking about the 2020-2021 award season, where Nomadland swept Best Picture, Best Director, also took home the Best Actress Oscar. And the premise of the show is we are going to be taking a look at the Best Picture nominees from each year. We'll talk about the race for Best Picture briefly, potentially some snubs for Best Picture. We'll give our thoughts on each movie, and then we will give our rankings of the films and determine what we thought should have won Best Picture.
Whether the Oscars were wrong. Yeah,
yes,
that's the title.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. But yeah, not we can just jump straight in. Not too much to talk about with this race.
It was just Nomadland.
It was Nomadland. Nomadland dominated. People thought it might be Trial of the Chicago 7 at the start of the year, but once Nomadland won the TIFF People's Choice, I think it was pretty much over.
Yeah.
By that point.
Pretty much. Like, I don't know what was second by the time. I guess maybe even something like
I think
Minari.
I thought
the father gained momentum, but I don't think it ever had enough. Like, it was always a smallish film.
I think by the end of Oscars night, The Father was the number 2 at one screenplay. And
it may have been. Yeah, it may have been tonight.
So,
but I'd say maybe beforehand that, I guess maybe Minari or Promising Young Woman, I remember being, in the conversation. People were talking about them, but as you said, it was very much a Nomadland sweep, pretty much.
100%. Yeah, like Trial of Chicago 7 didn't even win a single Oscar.
No.
So yeah. Also, yeah, the Golden Globes were weird because like there was nothing in the musical or comedy category. It was like Borat, Hamilton, Palm Springs, and The Prom, and then that disgusting piece of movie music. So like Golden Globes didn't help with anything. Critics' Choice, they had One Night in Miami and Ma Rainey's in, which were the two big snubs at the Oscars. They didn't have The Father and Judas and the Black Messiah. Also, News of the World and The Five Bloods filled out their lineup. So I would say News of the World and The Five Bloods plus Soul were probably the next in line films.
Yeah.
Because like I know, I feel like that makes the most sense. Borat got a PGA nom. And it won
I think that would have been a weird pick, though.
It really would have for Best Picture. Yeah. Then, do you remember the Mauritanian got in at BAFTA for Best Picture?
Yes. Yeah, I do remember the Mauritanian.
So that was the thing. That definitely happened.
Yes, it happened.
So yeah, I've still never seen it. I still never saw it.
Don't bother.
But yeah, so it was a pretty clear cut race. I mean, Chloe Zhao, I think, set the record for the most wins in any category by a person with director in that award season. She won something like 60 Best Director prizes across the award season. I think collectively everybody else had like 14. It was not even close. So Nomadland was the clear winner at the Academy Awards. What were some of our biggest snubs?
So, I mean, we mentioned it briefly before the show, but my favorite film of 2020, and still one of my favorite films, like, of all time, really, it was Another Round, which thankfully did get stuff, like it got international feature, and Thomas Vinterberg, thankfully, made it into the Best Director lineup.
Yeah.
But I would have loved to have seen it get Best Picture, because I would have loved to have seen it been that is Drive My Car. Sadly, it didn't quite do that much, but I think that's just a brilliant film. You know, Mads Mikkelsen could have even got in. Yeah, just an absolutely amazing experience, really, is the
Okay.
word I'd use to describe that film.
To be honest, do we think that if it had a lock 10, another round could have gotten in? Because with the director, because Ma Rainey's missed screenplay. It missed, and it didn't get director, obviously. Like, it was just going off of actor, actors, and text versus another round with director being the big international push of the year. Like, I don't know. I don't know.
It would have been on the bubble. I don't think it would have got in because
Yeah.
I don't know. It wasn't ever Drive My Car, really. That film. It was a
No.
major surprise when Vinterberg got in director. Whereas for Hamaguchi,
I mean, it kind of was.
Yeah,
For
I mean, for
Vinterberg.
Hamaguchi, it sort of was. Yeah.
Or no. I sorry. I thought you meant no.
Oh,
It was
no.
it was a big surprise for Vinterberg to get into
Yeah,
director.
exactly. That's what I'm
I thought
saying.
you
So
said
it was a
wasn't,
major
and I was like,
surprise.
no, it definitely was.
No, for him
Yeah.
it was a major surprise. With for Hamaguchi, people were sort of expecting it by that point. So Drive My Car was definitely a bigger film than Another Round ever was. And if we're saying Drive My Car was maybe the 10th spot in Best Picture, you know, where was Another Round? I'm not sure it was ever in the top 10.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it was close though. I think it was at least
Yeah,
close.
I think it was close.
Yeah. Other big winners of the night: Anthony Hopkins, The Father, which so deserved. Francis McDormand, Nomadland, Yoon Jung Minari, Daniel Kaluuya, Judas and Black Messiah, Promising Young Woman in Screenplay, The Father, taking adapted screenplay. And then Soul, I think, was also pretty close. I would have liked to see that get in, especially in year 10. I think it's a great film, one animated feature. Another snub that I'll throw out: Palm Springs. It was never going to be a Best Picture nominee, but just a delightful movie. Like Kristen Milioti and Andy Samberg, just great in it. As is J.K. Simmons. Like, just an absolute delight of a film. That's pretty much it for like snubs. Quo Vadis, I guess I would have liked to see get in.
I'd maybe also throw out Onward because like I'm one of the few people who probably maybe prefer Onward to Soul. I love them both, obviously. Major Pixar
Okay,
fan.
wait. We'll need to address this separately. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I did really love Onward, but it was never going to get in. It was never even in the conversation. It was never going to win animated feature, let alone do anything else. But yeah, I mean, it was one of my favorite films of 2020. So there's that.
Okay, yeah. Quickly shout out Quo Vadis from Bosnia and Herzegovina, probably the number 2 to Another Round in international feature. It's a harrowing movie, but it's really, really great. So another one that was never in the conversation, could have been a fun pick. But let's give our thoughts on the movies that actually were nominated for Best Picture. We'll just go alphabetical order. Let's start out with The Father. I'll let you go first on this one.
Right, so The Father. I will say, like, I have had personal experience with Alzheimer's. Like, members of my family has had Alzheimer's. So I don't think the story ever was going to appeal drastically to me because, like, I don't really want to see the pain they were going through. And this very much does show, like, the pain of it and the confusion and everything like that. I think it is very, very effective in doing that. It's just, personally, I don't necessarily really wanted to see that. Having said that, it's a beautifully crafted film. Like, just everything from the production design, the editing, even like the cinematography, even though it's not, flashy cinematography, it is still beautiful. It keeps you on edge throughout. That is just by the nature of the story they're telling and how they're telling it. Like, you are never bored, never bored. You were just always on edge, always want to know what's happening next, always trying to get to like the bottom of it, always trying to understand what's happening. And I feel that maybe that is reflective of the actual condition itself. You're never truly understanding anything. So similar to this, I mean, I'll mention it here because like the acting like this year in general among all the Best Picture nominees is superb. Like just so many great performances. Is Anthony Hopkins probably deserving of Best Actor? Yeah, I'd say he probably is. I think he did probably give the best performance. But having said that, there are 2-3 more who could have easily done it any other year.
Riz Ahmed.
Exactly. Riz Ahmed is the one that immediately comes to mind.
Same.
But yeah, I mean, the performances, Anthony Hopkins, obviously phenomenal. Olivia Colman, obviously phenomenal. yeah, it's just a great film. Maybe does like a bit of rewatchability considering how depressing it is.
Yeah.
It's not a film you enjoy watching, which is
No.
important when it comes to films. Like I do like films to be rewatchable, um, and this just isn't. But that is not at its fault. I mean, it's very effective in what it's doing, and it's really good. It's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Just yeah. Briefly touch on the best actor lineup. Would have been cool to see Mads Mikkelsen instead of Gary Oldman, but whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, what a great performance from Anthony Hopkins. Maybe my favorite performance of all time.
Wow.
Uh, I mean, I'd said it since I watched the film. I hadn't been able to bring myself to rewatch it though until for this show. I saw it once a couple days before the Oscars because it took forever to actually come
It
out.
did. Yeah, June
Um,
4th, I believe. I don't know why I remember that date so vividly, but yeah.
yeah, but yeah, it was a while, but like he's so good, as is Olivia Colman, who I think like it's almost her performance is almost a little bit overshadowed just because of how good Hopkins is, but she's also just phenomenal. The screenwriting in this is incredible. I think to one
Yeah.
scene in particular, where they're at the dinner table and the conversation loops back to the start of it. Um, just beautifully crafted. The production design is so subtle,
Yeah.
and it changes slowly, even just in like the elements around it, slowly becoming more and more blue throughout until we finally see the end. Like, and even though it isn't a film that I would actively pick to rewatch for fun, I do think that there is a fair amount of rewatchability just because of like how many things you can pick up
Yeah.
just in
Yeah,
the
I guess
subtle
so.
details.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, like it's one of the more engaging films that I've ever seen, especially for like a predominantly one location film. It's so engaging, and
Yeah.
really it just comes down to Hopkins' performance. I'm actually quite happy with this winning adapted screenplay. Um,
Yeah.
I
I
think
am
it's
as well.
very
I
well
am as well.
deserved.
Yeah.
So, just a
Yeah.
great movie all around.
For
Great
sure.
film.
For sure.
Next, speaking of great performances, Judas and the Black Messiah. I mean, Daniel Kaluuya.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Still, also, I will say this is still my favorite movie trailer ever. Um, I don't know if
Okay.
you remember
I
seeing the
don't
trailer
recall
or
the
anything.
trailer. No, I don't think I ever watched the trailer, to be honest. I just knew
Okay,
that it
well, we're
was
doing this after
regarded.
we record,
Okay.
but the way the trailer is cut together gives me goosebumps every single time.
Okay.
Um,
Nice.
and yeah, no, Clue is great.
Yeah, of course.
Like Licky Stanfield for some reason is a supporting actor, which whatever.
Yeah.
But he's also great. Jesse Plemons is great. Dominique Fishback should have been nominated.
Yeah,
Um,
so I think that Lakeith Clemens and Fishback are all very good. I don't know if they're all necessarily completely Oscar worthy. That is only due because I feel that Dan Kaluuya does just completely steal the show.
oh,
Like
100%.
he overshadowed any other performance in the movie. So that's not discrediting, Lakeith Clemens and Fishback.
Yeah,
I just don't know if they were necessarily Oscar worthy picks.
that's fair. That's completely fair. Yeah, I do think that this film can get a bit muddled at points
Mm,
in the screenwriting. It
yeah,
isn't the most strong, but like it's beautifully shot.
yeah,
This isn't a film that you'd expect to have great cinematography, but the cinematography and editing are both great. And I mean, yeah, just Daniel Kaluuya. You could watch the movie for Daniel Kaluuya alone and
yeah,
be satisfied. Um,
yeah.
I think it's very good. Um,
Mm,
even through a couple of screenplay problems that I have, I think
yeah.
it switches perspective a bit too much and can kind of lose a lot of momentum at times.
Yeah. I do think, yeah, that it is also does link in with pacing issues. It is not always, considered like some scenes are a bit too slow, some scenes are a bit too quick. But that is due to the screenplay, I reckon. The story itself, however, is just automatically such an interesting one that I don't think the
Yeah,
screenplay really needs to be brilliant. Like it just needs
yeah,
to convey the story because the story is already a very interesting one. The direction, as you said, it's incredible. It's so vibrant without like being in your face, which is the exact kind of direction I often find when it's a bit too in your face, I sort of get detracted from it because I feel like, yeah, I'm watching a filmmaker making a movie, pretty much. That was what I felt with Tragedy Macbeth. I thought, yeah, this is him patting himself on the back because he's made a beautiful film, whatever. So it does slightly take me out of it. You know, I think this film does need one or two more slightly grander moments. Like films like Nomadland and Minari can get away with not having these sort of grander moments because they're not those kind of films. Where this one, I do think maybe just needs to have one or two more moments to just really go, yeah, that is a really, really great film. As it is, I do think it is a very, very good film. I just don't think it has enough moments to really elevate it. Above that, I do think it is, the direction Dan Kaluuya that bring this film up rather than, the actual film itself. Because I don't know if I really
Yeah.
remember all the elements of this film, like after
Just
the
barely
fact.
forgettable. I didn't
Yeah,
remember that
exactly.
much coming back to
Exactly.
revisit it.
Mm.
So, yeah, I would agree with a lot of that. I mean, it's also like I think maybe why it's a bit lacking in those grand moments is because like I mean, it is a bit depressing. Like
It is. It is.
it's like it we America hasn't been too kind to,
Yeah.
people with good ideas.
Yeah.
And that's we saw this again. I mean, I also just I don't know if it was specified in the film, but I was just reading about it. He was 21 for
Yes,
campaign
I
in
know.
real life.
I read that as well, which
Which is
makes it, which I do think Dan Kaluuya does maybe feel a bit old.
a
So it
bit
does
old, yeah.
slightly take away from that fact. Like if like obviously Dan Kaluuya is this part, like no one else should have been cast for this part.
Yeah.
But you
Like
almost
maybe a
wish he
little
was
bit.
a little younger.
Yeah.
So that impact of him being 21 really does hit home.
Yeah, 100%. Because I didn't get that from the film
No,
at all.
no.
I don't know how much it's even mentioned in the film, probably because he didn't look that age entirely.
Yeah,
But yeah, just a great film though. Just
yeah.
a very good film. All right, next we have Mank.
Okay.
This is I would say pretty well known as one of the bottom films
Yeah.
out of the Best Picture nominees. I think I like it more than most. Um, I enjoy this movie. I have fun with it. I love old Hollywood. I love Citizen Kane. I'm actually like I find old Hollywood fascinating. Is this the most entertaining movie? No. Is it a bit dull? Yes. Does it drag a lot? Yes. Is Gary Oldman like not that good?
Mm.
No. But like just on a personal bias level, like I enjoyed it, but this isn't that great of a movie. It's one of Fincher's worst.
Yeah, I mean, if you showed me this film and didn't say it was Fincher, I wouldn't think it's Fincher. Like the
Yeah.
visual styles is like really actually quite good. I do think the black and white
Oh yeah,
cinematography
100%.
does work and is
The
probably the best
typewriter
part of the
on
film.
screen is great.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think like just stylistically that's probably where this film is at its best, all the costume design production and that element, that's all very, very good. But as you say, like I am someone who probably has more interest than most in old Hollywood. I'm not
Yeah.
fascinated by it. I don't read too much into it, but just being like loving films automatically puts me at a
Yeah.
slightly more interested in most. And if you still can't get me on board with it, it's going a bit wrong because I wasn't really on board with any of the sort of story or what they were going for here. I thought it was just essentially it could be boiled down to a lot of people talking with one another, which
Yeah.
works for some films but doesn't really work for here because I don't know, it doesn't ever catch you up, which I know was a problem at the time. A lot of people saying, "Oh, it's too confusing.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense." I would completely agree with that. I didn't really understand what was going on in this film for about half of the time, which is a problem. There's also, like I mentioned, there not being enough grand sequences in Judas and the Black Messiah. I don't
Yeah.
think there are really any here that are
I
really
guess the
like
dinner
any
party.
sequence.
The
Yeah,
dinner
I
party
guess the
maybe.
dinner party is probably maybe the only one.
But like, even so.
Yeah, even
It's not.
so, there's no real memorable moment. I do think what it does do, which I think is quite effective, is it does give you a sort of new appreciation of Citizen Kane, which I do
Yeah.
think is cool. But on the whole, I don't think like Oldman as well. I'll mention Oldman's good. But I mean, he's not going to not be good, is he? He's
Like
just
decent.
not best actor really.
Yeah.
So on but a technical level, and this gaining new appreciation for the films like Citizen Kane, I don't think that's enough to warrant really a Best Picture nom and to enough to warrant a rewatch of this film. I just think it's sort of quite mediocre, to be honest.
Yeah. I will say I do want to shout her out. Amanda Seyfried
Oh
is
yeah, I
great
forgot about
in
that.
this movie. She's
Mm.
very, very good. When I saw this, I was like, dude, she's probably going to win supporting actress, and I think that she was probably the front runner until Yoon Jung had her surge.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like, Yoon Jung did end up being my favorite supporting actress pick of the year, and we'll talk about Minari in just a second. But like Amanda Seyfried was very, very good. And she provided a much needed energy to the film, because otherwise the film is like I was looking forward to every single moment when she was on my screen, because like and everything else, it's a very low key film, and it feels like I think it thinks that it's saying something when it really isn't, because like I have no problem with a low key, slow paced film, but like actually say something with that time. Don't have it just be people talking, as you were saying. So, I appreciate this movie a lot. I'm happy that it exists. But
Best Picture,
I
think there were better films that year, as we mentioned at the front of the show.
Yeah, the Oscars were wrong about this one. All right, we just talked about it. Minari. I just find this film delightful. Is it like, the most well crafted? Is it like, the most provocative of messaging? No, but it's just a delightful film to watch.
It's quite an unsubtle, message about the American dream as well. Which is, I do appreciate all the symbolism made, like the flower, how it grows through lines like that. That's quite a nice piece of symbolism there.
It's sweet.
Yes, I do think you empathize with all the characters so quickly. They do all feel like a real family. I really loved all the relationships between every character, and I do really like the way how it starts off with a focus on the father and the mother, and then it sort of switches, and that's cool, because that's like, I do think it is such a personal story, so I don't know if it completely impacted me on the way that like it maybe wanted me to. So I don't really know if I'll remember it that much in like 5-10 years. Like I didn't really remember it, like all the details and stuff going into it, so it does suggest it's maybe kind of a forgettable film. But having said that, it's just beautiful to look at. It's got great writing, great directing, just a great score as well. It needs to be mentioned as well.
So the score is so underappreciated in this movie.
It's just very well. It's quite well crafted, and it's just beautiful to look at. It's a delightful little film. But it's Best Picture. I don't know if it should have ever won Best Picture, but it was a good film.
I'm happy with the nomination, though.
Yeah, exactly. I'm happy with the nomination. Put it that way.
And this is also very much a film that, like, in any other year wouldn't have even been in the conversation. But I'm happy that we get something like this as a Best Picture nominee. Even like, it was a COVID year. It wasn't great. But like, if we get to see this film, preserved in film history because of it, it's you need more films like this that are just sweet. They're nice. They're just fun, enjoyable films. Yoon Jung is great. Like, just one of the most like likable characters in film. Like, it's just a delightful film. Alan Kim is adorable. Like, I don't have that much to say about the movie. It's just it's delightful. It's delightful. It was never going to be anything, profound. It's just it is what it is, and I'm happy for it. All right, next we have the Best Picture winner, Nomadland, which is the film that I love a lot. I have seen 4 or 5 times. But I'll throw to you on this one to start.
Okay, this was only the second time I've watched it. I watched it when it came out, and then the second time I watched it, and I really wish, more than any other film in this lineup, that I could have seen this one in, a cinema or a theater. Definitely, easily. Like, the only one I actually did see in theaters, which I was lucky to, really, was The Father. That was a great experience. But this one I really wish I could have done. I mean, I'm convinced Frances McDormand is not acting in this movie. She is just a character. Like, she is just that person. In this world. Which is just out of the world. And the story was very quaint. Is the word I wrote down to describe it. Wow. I'm quite proud of the fact I used that word. Quaint. But that is due to the fact thank you. It's like, it's just so reflective of just real life. And people have said it feels like a documentary. Completely agree with that. And yes, that is partially due to the people actually being people. But it does people, feel like
not actors.
Yes, exactly. I don't know if the screenplay is necessarily the strongest part of the film. I am very glad The Father did end up, beating it. But it is still, it's still very good. And I mean, what can there be say what is there to say about the technical elements of this film that hasn't already been fed? I mean, the cinematography, oh my, and like this,
Yeah.
you know
I'm
about
like
all this,
Mank was
you know
great, but
about
the
all this.
fact that this lost cinematography still
Yeah,
bothers me.
yeah.
It still
I don't
bothers
think
me.
it is. I don't think it is flawless. I do think they could have dove a little deeper into the sort of anti-capitalist messaging and stuff they do with Amazon. I do think
Yeah.
they touch on it and then they go, oh, no, we're not gonna talk too much on that. Um, and I do also have a slight problem with the fact they are using real people and then an actor in the lead role. I do just think, well, why didn't you just make this a documentary and tell a real story rather than like the sort
Yeah.
of blend of fiction? I am slightly uncomfortable with that. It does feel like we are watching method acting. You know, we are
Yeah.
watching method acting, which is a concept I don't really like anyway. I don't think
Yeah.
we don't need method acting in society. We really, really don't. And so that can be slightly uncomfortable. But if you do ignore those elements, there is a really, really great and just heartfelt film at the core of it. And I think one that is very memorable and will impact generations to come, I'm sure.
Yeah. I and I also love that a film like this was able to win Best Picture. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that Chloe Zhao is a great director. I'm glad that she was able to get her due with this film.
Hmm.
Like I can't. I mean, I really love Chloe Zhao's filmmaking
Yeah.
style. I loved Eternals way more than I think anybody else on planet Earth. I think that Eternals is a top 5 MCU film.
Yeah.
I like yeah,
Whereas I think it's bottom two.
yeah, I think that this one's really great. I think that Frances McDormand is incredible, even though that there is a another performer that was nominated for Best Actress that I might prefer by a half of a percent.
Okay.
Um,
See, I feel I know who you're talking about, and I would say I do slightly prefer Frances McDormand here.
yeah,
I do think
it's
she was
it's
a
it's
deserving
so
winner.
close.
It
Like I
is
wish they
very,
could have
it is
tied.
very close, but
I
yeah,
wish they could have tied,
yeah,
but like it just a great performance from her. A really really great performance. Very deserving of her win. Yeah, I mean, this it's gore. I could stare at this movie for hours. I
mm,
I think
yeah,
your letterboxd review of what was it, songs my brother taught me was like,
mm,
I wish Chloe Zhao could direct my
yeah.
life to make it
Which is
more
just
beautiful.
yeah, very true.
Like, yeah,
Still stand by
um,
that sentiment.
yeah. Have you seen The Writer?
No, I still
Okay,
haven't. I do need to.
okay. That's yeah. She's just makes like and quaint is quite a good word
Yeah,
to describe her
yeah. I was
entire
quite proud of
filmography.
myself when I was
It's
like,
a yeah,
Nomadland, quaint.
yes. Uh, um, but yeah, just an all around, just it's a very good movie. It's a very
Mm,
very good movie. All right. Next up, we have Promising Young Woman. So this is a film that was fairly divisive. Um, and I do agree with some of the criticisms. Is it the most subtle thing in the world? No. It's very much in your face.
mm,
But this is so much of a like just sensory experience for me, this film. It is like it goes on the list of films that like rapidly increases my heartbeat by the end.
yeah,
Um, Carrie Mulligan is the performer that I was alluding to.
yeah.
It's so close. I wish they could have tied, but I slightly prefer Carrie Mulligan to Frances McDormand. I thought that she was incredible. If you've talked to me for like more than 30 minutes, you know that I have a profound love of Bo Burnham and everything that Bo Burnham has done. I
Yeah.
think that he's actually very good in this.
Mm,
I think that he gives a very good, unassuming
yeah.
performance.
The
There's my
casting of
word
him
of the
was
day.
brilliant. Like
Oh, the casting
this,
of him is so good because he's so well liked.
yeah,
And he's seen as just this, like well liked like kid, you know.
yeah,
At that point, we're pre inside.
yeah. I think the
And
casting of like everyone in this
yeah,
film is just incredible. Like even someone like
it's a
Alfred
great.
Molina,
I'm
who a
sorry.
lot of people like. I'm only familiar with Alfred Molina for being Doctor Octopus, so I'm familiar with him being a monster, and then to sort of subvert that, that's just incredible.
Yeah, yeah, like I mean, just so much. This movie is all about subversion of expectations, and as
Mm,
we've seen, when you do that in film, Last Jedi, people don't aren't very happy
yeah,
with you. But like even if there is some tonal inconsistencies, I'm perfectly fine with this winning original screenplay, like over Trial of the Chicago 7. or like Mank. Like I'm quite happy with this as a screenplay win. I have so much fun with this movie. I think it balances fun and like trauma even in some really well done and well placed messaging very well.
Yeah, so the first time I watched it, I was in love with this film. I think I gave it 5 stars. I had definitely dropped down on it.
I've as well.
You know,
Yeah.
I do understand where the criticisms are coming from, and I do buy into a fair few of them now on rewatch. I don't think it does hold up brilliantly. I mean, you mentioned all the great parts of this film, and yeah, you could keep going on about them. You know, it's punchy, it's bold, it's yeah. I think almost it works more better as a thriller than it does as like an Oscar Best Picture. I don't
Yeah.
completely know if it should have been in the conversation. I mean, I feel like this should have been one of those undiscovered gems that sort of exist there. Instead,
Yeah.
it got thrown into and it got analyzed a bit too much, and people started, you know, having problems with it. And I do agree with those problems. Like the fact the whole film sort of centers around the idea that the justice system and the police like don't do enough to help with these sort of cases, and then to end it on like a positive message of all the police are
About the
coming in.
police.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
police coming in to save them. That is problematic, and that
Yeah.
does make the whole film ring just a tiny bit hollow. Having said that, I do think there are some brilliant scenes. Like this, probably I'd say it's close, but this is like the most momenty film. Like you've
Yeah.
got the
I
Bo
think it has
Burnham
the best
reveal,
moments.
the
Yeah.
lawyer film scene, the college dean scene with the daughter, and like
Which is great.
those are some brilliant moments.
I mean, the film's been out for 2 years. We can talk spoilers.
Yeah.
Cassie's death
Yes. Yeah.
is very well done.
Yeah.
It's very unexpected.
Yeah.
But no, I agree. Like this was a I don't know what happened to my camera. This is a you know a film that premiered at Sundance that people were like,
Yeah.
wow, this is great. Everybody, you should watch it. And then because COVID hit, it was kind of
Yeah.
elevated
Everyone did
into
watch
this.
it.
Yeah, everyone did watch it, and it was kind of elevated into this Best Picture status.
Yeah.
Which I think made it. Yeah, I agree. It was
Yeah.
overanalyzed because it was placed in this position alongside, you know, more critically acclaimed.
Yeah. I will
films.
say, like you mentioned, it should have beaten Charlie of Chicago 7. It should have beaten Charlie of Chicago 7. Having said that, I don't know if it is completely deserving of the best original screenplay. Like considering how preachy it can be, like it can be very just
I
in
guess
your face, which
like
I guess is sort of the point. But
yeah,
in a similar way, I wouldn't have wanted Don't Look Up to win original screenplay.
yeah,
I don't know if I really wanted this to. I just think too many messages are they're trying to make it feel too important.
yeah,
When it can't, because all of the things, they don't sort of work up together. I do appreciate the fact it isn't like the person who was abused that is then going after revenge for all these
yeah,
people, because I do think that this then does give you someone to root for. You know, you are rooting for the memory of this person rather
yeah,
than Cassie herself. And that is good, because that gives you a pathway into the film. It makes
yeah.
it so that not everyone's horrible, because Cassie is not really the character you root for. It's the idea of what she's trying to do that you root for.
Yep.
So I do think this is a problematic film. One I do, as you say, have fun with, and I do think there is a lot to enjoy in it. I do think it does work better with a thriller, though, than it does
Yeah.
as a sort of more important Oscar Best Picture.
Because like I think both of us had this maybe at number one.
I had it at number one, yeah.
I think I also had it at number one.
Yeah.
And like I still, don't get me wrong, I still really like this movie.
Yeah.
I
think it gives you a very
like
visceral, reaction. First time watching, yes, I'm on board, which is cool. But when you actually stop, analyze it a bit deeper, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's still better than, the worst of this crop of Best Picture noms.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does sit just above that. I don't think it sits at the top, really.
So, and I still have it above. I'm presuming you have this at 6.
I do have this 6, yeah.
Okay. I still have this a bit higher just because I have a lot of fun with the movie, but like from a critical standpoint, I don't think that it holds up quite as well. I 100% agree. Yeah, it definitely gives you a high the first time you watch it. Doesn't work quite as well on rewatch. So yeah, it's interesting. We've both actually been quite similar so far, I feel, as on our opinions. I was expecting you to be a lot higher on that than I was.
No, because that was one of the ones. Because
that has gone down.
It did go down, definitely.
All right, two more, and then we'll give our rankings. Sound of Metal. I mean, Riz Ahmed. Yeah,
Yeah.
take all of the Oscars, please.
Mm.
I'm glad he has one
Yeah.
now because,
Yeah. Because
like,
yeah, I mean, that's cool. I mean,
he's
he's Riz Ahmed. He's Riz Ahmed.
he's okay. So he's phenomenal in this.
Yeah.
As is Paul Raci, and I'm so happy that Paul Raci got nominated because
Mm.
that's awesome
Yeah.
that we got a Paul Raci nomination for this. Um, yeah, it's just it's messaging about like um having like it's like very very scary thing to lose the thing
Mm.
that about the art you care most about. Like that'd be
Yeah.
like if we went like blind.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
can't do anything with film anymore. So
No.
like yeah, he gives one of the best. He gave one of the best performances of the year, like a top 5 performance of the year, irregardless, or like not irregardless, regardless of the Oscars. Um, he's really really phenomenal in this. Um, just a couple criticisms. I don't think that this film is paced the best. I think it kind of slows down and drags towards the middle. But I think it recovers in the ending by the end of the film. I mean, it's the ending's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I don't love love this movie, but I think it's very very good.
Okay, so I'm more positive on it because I've talked to a person who has someone in their life that is deaf, and like they were giving me a personal account of why that film meant so much to them, and that just made me appreciate this film even more because it feels so important. Like maybe it's not
It does,
as
yeah,
important to me, but it's important to other people, and that makes me appreciate it even more. I do think everything they're saying, like similar to Minari, this is a very personal story, but I do think this has
yeah.
more slightly universal themes
Mhm.
because I think everything it's saying about acceptance and like, adaptation and the importance of community, I think those are all very, very important messages to have. Um, yeah, I mean, of course, the sound design, I can't believe you didn't mention it. Sound design is just
Yeah,
incredible, and the editing as well just work
yeah,
in such harmony to create a real memorable experience when watching it. I do think Riz Ahmed and his character arc and the emotional journey he goes through is easily like the best part of the film.
yeah,
Like I think it's even better than the sound. It's just about this journey that this character is going through, and I think it's expertly done. I think similar to Promising Young Woman, it also has some amazing moments.
yeah.
Not as many, like it
Mhm.
isn't designed in that way, but I do think when he goes back to show Paul Raci his operation, that is just a real touching moment.
Yeah,
Really beautiful, and it doesn't ever judge, which is a similar thing to what Another
yeah,
Round did, which we mentioned. It doesn't judge either side of which you come at this with. And I think that's very, very important. I think this, everything it's saying about, like losing the thing that makes you happy, that is such a,
yeah,
horrific experience. And I think this portrays it in such, subtlety and with such nuance. This film could have easily just become an overbloated drama and go really
yeah.
overboard with this. But it doesn't. It doesn't. It makes correct decisions. It's subtle, it's nuanced. And yeah, I really, really love this film.
Yeah, and I
Easily
totally.
better than Coda, by the way. Easily
Oh,
better than
I was
Coda.
just gonna say the same thing. This is so much better than
Yeah.
Coda, like just like unequivocally, like it is so much better than Coda.
Mm.
Like if you were gonna have a deaf, representation, like like it should be this. And I
Yeah.
feel like I came across a bit more negative than I wanted to because this is like in the top tier of these Best Picture
Yeah.
nominees for me.
Yeah.
I
So
think
I'd
it's
say,
really
honestly,
really good.
like the ending of this film is probably my favorite moment from any of these Best Picture nominations. Like,
Okay,
yeah,
I
just
think
that moment itself. When he
mine
opens it, when he takes it off and it's just all silent and it's
yeah.
peaceful. It's beautiful.
No, that's probably top 5. Yeah, that's really up there for me. I think my favorite would be the ending of The Father.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, that was another excellent moment.
but yeah, the ending of this is really up there. But no, I mean, like, legitimately, two of my favorite performances that I've ever seen came from this year with Riz Ahmed in this and Anthony Hopkins in The Father.
Mm.
I think they're both just brilliant. Yeah, like it dragging in the middle is only a slight problem.
Yeah.
It isn't that big. It's only briefly. Other than that, I really don't have that many flaws with this film.
No.
Like I,
So
I
I,
also
to be honest, I didn't even really feel the pace dragging. I can understand where you're coming from, but for me, didn't really bother me, so I don't really have
Yeah.
any flaws with this film, to be honest.
Also, the cinematography is great, especially in all
Yeah.
of his drumming sequences with it
Mm.
entirely black behind him, just focused on him. You feel like the isolation,
Yeah.
especially with the sound design working with it. Like,
Mm.
just a beautifully constructed film.
Yeah.
Okay, so now on to what I'll spoil the ranking. This is the worst Best Picture nominee for me. The Trial of the
Okay.
Chicago 7. Like, I don't know. Like, and like we've talked about, like, like for instance, Nomadland almost was able to do some really good, like, anti-establishment, anti-capitalist, like, commentary.
Mm.
And like I think that like it kind of worked. They could have done more with it, but like
They could have done more with it.
what they did was good. This movie,
I do think they do back out of it, and I don't know why they back out of it when they
I
could.
don't
Yeah,
know
but
either, but like
continue.
Trial of the Chicago 7 for me is just, it feels like, I don't know, it feels like childish at point, like just about like how it's like, like I don't know, it feels like it's making this, like turning this into like a game, and like it never really takes a stand. Like it seems like it's taking a stance, but like
Mm.
looking at the film, it really isn't. Like, yeah,
Mm.
there's the big, like, oh, stand up and applaud moment at the end, but then like I don't know, everything just happens so disjointedly, and like, yeah, there are some good performances, but then it's also like it's making you empathize with, like, um people on like the other side, and it makes, like, the people that we're supposed to be rooting for come across as like just like idiots, when like
Mm.
it plays into the stereotype of, like, like hippies being like idiots, when like a lot of these people were very, very smart people in real life who organized, like, like nation changing events,
Yeah.
that created a massive, like, push for the better, in our country. And like they're seen as like dumb, and then you have to have like Kunstler like come in and like save them because they're so incompetent. And like, I don't know, so much of this movie just rubs me in the wrong way. Like, it's like, I mean, Adam McKay was like, he's like, the liberal like filmmaker, and he called Aaron Sorkin the conservative filmmaker, which I wouldn't go that far, but
No.
like it is bit of hyperbole, but like it definitely didn't push across the messaging, and I think the way that he was saying, like, in the way that he was wanting to, I think, while also
Mm.
simultaneously it's going to make conservative people still mad at the same time. So like in a very political film, I don't know who he was really appealing to politically.
No. Yeah. I mean, I would probably put it just slightly ahead of Mank, but that's just from a simple enjoyment level. Like,
That's fair.
it is. This film was written and designed in a way that is a crowd pleasing like way to write a
Yeah.
film, but yeah, there are moments that you go, "Yay, that's nice." When you think about it
Yeah.
more and stop and actually appreciate it as a film and as a whole,
Yeah.
it falls apart somewhat. But when actually watching it, you can't help but just get on board with all of these, nice things you see on screen. Having said that, it's like I'm not going to argue with you if you put Mank ahead of this because I don't care to argue about this film. I don't
Yeah.
care enough about this film. Fundamentally, I did. Performances are decent. Like Sacha
It's
Baron
fine.
Cohen is actually good, but the
He's
rest
the
of them are
standout.
just
Yeah.
but they're just sort of good. They're not great performances by any means.
Yeah.
I mean, it's perfectly watchable. It keeps your attention throughout, but it's an Aaron Sorkin screenplay, so that's pretty standard.
Yeah.
There's no stylistic flair, but I mean, what do you expect? It's an Aaron Sorkin film.
Yeah.
I
Just a
don't
bad
care about it.
director. Just
Yeah,
sort of
yeah,
thing.
pretty much. I mean, you can check our video about
Yeah.
that. Mostly I don't care about historical accuracy, but this I do think it does go so far
Yeah.
over the line of just not being accurate that it
Yeah.
does drag me out of the movie. Like mostly, I'm just like, yeah, sure, couple details here and there. I don't really care. This one, I'm like, yeah, you need to be slightly accurate when dealing with such a sensitive matter.
Right.
You do need to approach it with some,
Like, it turns them into,
um,
like, superheroes, which, like, they weren't, like, they were
exactly.
great people, but, like, they like, that were, like, fine, but, like, they had
Yeah,
flaws. They had
yeah.
very obvious flaws. They weren't
Yeah,
perfect. They weren't, like, I don't know, it turned them into, like, cliched movie characters instead
yeah,
of
and that is a
multidimensional
problem. Yeah,
characters.
like there are cheesy moments. It does definitely feel like the most Oscar bait out of any of these
Oh, yeah.
nominations easily. But having said that, Oscar bait, it is designed in a way that keeps the film watchable. It makes you enjoy it. It's an easily accessible film, but it's just nothing stand out. Like it's just sort of there. When I look at these Best Picture nominations, I just think I look at that one and I go, it's a film, it exists. You know, I'm not actively ever offended by it. I don't, you know, but I'd never choose to rewatch it unless I'm doing like a rewatch of these, as we did for this video.
Yeah, and I don't care.
Pretty much,
I
yeah,
don't
exactly.
care about this movie.
Like, I mean, we can put Mank ahead of this on the thing because I really don't care to argue for Trial of Chicago 7's. I don't care to argue in its favor.
Yeah. Well, speaking of rankings, so yeah, we'll have to try to put together a collaborative ranking here. So we can start at the bottom. I mean, we just talked about it.
Yeah, I'm perfectly happy
with the bottom.
Yeah, I'm perfectly happy with that. I personally probably put it slightly ahead of Mank, but yeah, I don't care enough.
Yeah, and then Mank number 7.
Yes,
I think we can agree on. And then okay, so what is your number 6?
So as we mentioned, my number 6 would be Promising Young Woman.
Promising Young Woman. Okay, my number 6, I have Judas and the Black Messiah.
Okay, I've got that. That is my number 5. So
okay, so I have Promising Young Woman at number 4. So I think that makes
sense. Yeah, to put
Judas at number 6.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, yeah. Just as we mentioned, like I like it. I like a lot of the messaging it's trying to push across. I think it the messaging that Trial of Chicago 7 was attempting to do. Like I think Judas and the Black Messiah does perfectly.
And I think it's a very good film, but I don't think it ever elevates itself to being a great film.
I think Shaka King has so much potential as a writer-director. I just don't think he's quite there yet. But I mean, he can obviously direct performance. Just like bit more narrative direction could benefit.
Yes, indeed.
But yeah, okay. So we still have Promising Young Woman at 6 and 4. My number 5 was Minari.
That was my number 4. So
okay. So I'm good with Promising at 5 then.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. I had it at number 5. I had it at number 4 just because like it gives me such a film high when I'm watching it. And sure, when you come down from it, there are some things to pick apart. But
yeah,
I had so much fun with it. And then that would I think make Minari our number 4 then.
That would indeed,
So I think we have the same top 3 in whatever order, but we do have the same movies in our top 3.
Yeah.
Which is I wasn't expecting that. But yeah, so far we have 8 Trial of Chicago 7, 7 Mank, 6 Judas and the Black Messiah, 5 Promising Young Woman, 4 Minari.
And actually I will say like those, like if I was putting in tiers, I'd put the bottom tier would be Man Control, then the next 3, and then I would agree like these are the top 3. These are fairly easily the top 3 in my opinion.
Yeah. Promising Young Woman went down a bit for me, and then Sound of Metal definitely went up for me on rewatch.
I'd actually agree completely with that.
All right, yeah. So my number 3 is Sound of Metal.
Okay, so I've got that at number 1. Personally, my favorite of these Best Picture nominations.
Wow. So okay, well this will be interesting to see how this shakes out. What's your number 2? Or what's your number 3? I guess
my number 3 is Nomadland.
So that's my number 1, and then we have the father. We have the father at number 2.
Yeah, does that put the father as number 1?
I don't know. How do we want to do this, or does it put the father at number 3 since it doesn't have a number 1 vote from either of us?
Oh, that's true. And then we'd have to okay.
Nomadland versus
I'm good with putting the father number 3, to be honest. Like the father and Nomadland for me are pretty interchangeable. So I'm good with if you are putting father number 3.
Okay, so the fathers are number 3. And then we're between Nomadland and Sound of Metal. So yeah. So I think that the Oscars in this case were not wrong. I think that they did do the correct thing. I have Nomadland at my number 1. And then you think that the Oscars were wrong. You think it should have gone to Sound of Metal or
I don't think they weren't well wrong.
Yeah.
Because, Nomadland is still 3rd in my opinion.
Yeah.
But they did slightly misjudge it, I reckon.
Yeah. So Nomadland versus Sound of Metal. I think that we can each make arguments. I think the best way to probably solve this will be to tie them because I don't think either of us will sway. No. But why to you is Sound of Metal the best picture?
So I think Sound of Metal is just overall a more important film, like especially now when like when the pandemic hit, we were losing stuff, and I think it was a very important film then, but I do think it is still a very important film now. I think it's got more going on than Nomadland in terms of on a thematic level. I do think like everything it's saying is, just there's more to it than Nomadland. I mean, I'll be arguing against Nomadland here. I do want to clarify, Nomadland is a great film. I do want to just put that out there. When you can't argue Riz Ahmed versus Frances McDormand. I do think they are both just phenomenal and very different roles. They're too difficult to compare, but they are both definitely the lead vehicles in their own movies. And I do think the journey that Riz Ahmed's character goes on is one that is just a bit more interesting than Frances McDormand. I feel like her journey is one. It's still about acceptance, but it's more about it's more sort of, I guess, stagnant. Like, she sort of comes into this, she's slightly curious. Oh yeah, it's cool. I'll become a part of this community. Whereas Riz Ahmed's character goes through such a journey, and the way it's handled is so subtle and nuanced. And I just think it's just absolutely incredible to watch him and the way his character just goes about the film. I think this film will mean a lot more to a lot more people than Nomadland will. I do think the screenplay is probably slightly stronger. It's got more moments that really just stand out. And yet, I don't know. I just find more to love, more to appreciate within a film like Sound of Metal than within a more maybe technically better crafted film is one like Nomadland. I just find more that I personally enjoy in filmmaking in general in a film like Sound of Metal.
Yeah, that's all of that is 100% fair. And I think it's also comes down to what we look for in films, because it seems like you definitely look more into the screenplay is one of your biggest things, whereas my thing that will predominantly make or break a film is the direction. And Sound of Metal, I would agree, is a better written film.
And I would agree. Nomadland is a better directed
film. So, and that just comes down to personal preference. I prefer better directed. I prefer direction as my number one thing, and you prefer the writing as your number one thing. And I think that both are entirely fair. Like I said, I mean, Sound of Metal is my number 3. I have it in the top tier alongside The Father. I think that all 3 of them are great films. I think that all 3 of them would have been great Best Picture winners. Honestly, any of them would have been entirely worthy and okay with me. But I have Nomadland just a bit higher because I do think that Frances McDormand's journey as Fern does do quite a bit. I think it's both a accepting of not only herself but a new version of herself alongside these people. And she isn't around them a lot. A lot of it is her by herself. She's learning to love it. She's learning, with David Strathairn's character. She's really learning to find herself. It's almost like a late age coming of age story.
That is an interesting way. That's a good way of looking at it.
So, which I find really interesting. I love coming of age stories that don't take place during high school. I mean, obviously, I love high school coming of age stories. I mean, Lady Bird, 8th grade, some of my favorite movies of all time. But I mean, Boyhood, Jesus. But films like this that look at really finding yourself even later in life, I think are just really fascinating. Chloe Zhao is one of my favorite directors. I think the cinematography in this is just gorgeous. I think it's inspirational, honestly, to up and coming directors and cinematographers to look at this film and how you can capture the world in such a just gorgeous way. I think that the indie capitalist, yes, they pull out of it a bit with Amazon, but I think it lingers throughout the entire film. The only reason that she's leaving, I can't remember the city's name. It's Rock something. But the only reason she's leaving her city is because the big company left, and because capitalism inspires competition, which sure, maybe it drives prices down a little bit, but it also displaces a lot of people and can force people into very uncomfortable living situations to make things for other people and then not receive the benefit. So I think while maybe some of the anti-capitalism critiques that we see within the film don't hit as much, which I would agree with, but the lingering the problem with it that we see throughout the entire film, I think works very, very well. I have such a love for this movie, and I think it also is a bit about connection. Like, for instance, that happened like to like my mom's family growing up. Like, you know, her dad like worked at like this factory that was like, you know, like, and it was a small town, worked at the factory that basically ran the entire town. Everybody in the town worked there, and then they left because, you know, you go to, it's all about making the money rather than you know, helping the people. And then, you know, he had to find a new job and he was making a lot less. And like, so, and I know, I think that messaging works really well. I'm fascinated with how small towns work, probably because of that, and how the economic structure that works. So I'm fascinated with so much of this movie, and I'm very happy with it as a Best Picture winner. But
and I'm happy with it as a Best Picture winner. I'm very happy for it to win. But personally,
and I think, and I would have been perfectly fine with The Sound of Metal win. So yeah, but that
or
is
even The Father, which we didn't discuss about. The Father. You know, great film. Great film.
I mean, yeah, we discussed it a little bit at the start. Yeah, at the, like, just a incredibly crafted film. Like, it's just like, not one that I'll, and I think honestly it is because like it's not one that I'll rewatch as much as Nomadland or Sound of Metal, which isn't it's almost to the film's credit that it was that effective. But I do like to watch movies, and that isn't one that, you know, I'll rewatch as much. I rewatched it for this, and I think I'm good for a couple years.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's also one of the ones I would recommend it the least to people out of a majority of films on this list, which again is probably to its credit, but does hurt it, I think, a bit. But that is the first episode of the Oscars we're on. We didn't know how this show would work, if it would be fun, but I had quite a lot of fun with it. So I hope that you, the viewer, also enjoyed it. So we are going to be working our way back through the years. So next year we have in a couple weeks, whenever I think we're doing the next one in 2 weeks. We'll be looking at the 2019 season,
which was another great year.
Year. Parasite. We had 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, The Irishman.
I really loved Ford versus Ferrari.
Yeah, just another really great year for movies. So I mean, a historic year at the Oscars. Jojo Rabbit, which I just rewatched recently. Very good. So we'll have a lot to talk about. Thomas and I will be getting to watching over the next couple of weeks, but I think this will be a fun thing to keep us entertained during the off season. And maybe could be a monthly thing or so while we're in the midst of award season. It's fun to look back at past seasons, and you can also learn quite a bit about the Academy and their tastes and what they go for by looking at past seasons. So that is the first episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Thomas, until next time, where can everybody find you?
Well, you can find me at Project Mayhem. If you want, the videos are unlisted, so if you want to see them there, you can. I might be getting back to that in a few months. We'll see. And on Letterboxd, as always, at Thomas Gladstone.
Yes, you'll be seeing The Northman, I think, before I will, at least.
Before you, Wednesday or maybe Tuesday. Okay. We'll see.
Okay.
Probably Wednesday though. Wednesday.
So I'm very jealous that it's out in the UK. But we'll be, of course, doing a review of that. But until then, you can find me on The Basement on YouTube, Letterboxd at Trevor Matson, and Twitter at DM Talks Movies, plus on the Banana Meter. Starting to get into some TV there. I'm gonna catch up on movie too. So until next time, stay safe, everybody, and goodbye.